In this demonstration, we'll look at managing applications. You typically run an application by clicking on its shortcut from the Start menu or some other location. Running applications appear down below in the taskbar. As you run applications, shortcuts are added to this area of the Start menu, which includes shortcuts for the last applications that you have run. For example, when you run a different application, an icon is added to this area of the Start menu. This allows you to easily access applications that you have recently run. The area on the top on the Start menu includes shortcuts for programs that always remain on the Start menu. For example, I can pin this program to the Start menu, and that adds it to the top area. Whereas the list of programs down below is modified based on the applications that I run, the applications in this area always remain. I can also take an application and add it to the Quick Launch area. That adds the icon down here. Shortcuts are not the actual application files themselves, but are rather just pointers to those application files. For instance, if I right-click on a shortcut and edit its properties, the Shortcut tab shows me the location of the actual executable file. The General tab shows me the location of the shortcut itself and properties about the shortcut. The Shortcut tab shows me properties of the actual executable file that I will run when the shortcut is clicked. Most applications are installed on your computer on the system drive in the Program Files directory. If I open that directory, you'll see folders for various applications or types of applications. For example, the Windows sidebar is installed into this directory, and this directory includes all of the files that are part of the sidebar application. This is the executable file, but the additional files within this folder are also required by that application. 64-bit operating systems will have an additional folder called Program Files x86. 64-bit applications are installed into the Programs Files directory, and 32-bit applications are installed into the Program Files x86 directory. These are the default locations when you install an application. However, you can typically choose an alternate location for an application. Let's look at a few issues when running and managing applications. I'll type a command that I use very often in troubleshooting. Now notice that I'm told that the requested operation requires elevation. In other words, this command requires administrator privileges in order to run. I'm currently logged on as a user who does not have administrator privileges. In fact, even when you log on with a user with administrator privileges, you'll often see this same message, because user account control runs your user account as a limited user until elevation is required. In this case, elevation can only occur if I run the command prompt as an administrator. So if I need to issue this command, I'd have to close down the application, and then I can right-click the application and choose Run as Administrator. And then here I'm prompted to log on as a different user with administrator privileges. And this user account will be used only to run this one application and not to work with the entire Windows desktop. Once I log on as the administrator user for this application, I can run the command that I was prevented from running previously. I find, however, that when I'm troubleshooting, I typically open the command prompt, try to run the command that I want to run, only to receive this message. I often forget to run as administrator. So instead of every time I run the application choosing Run as Administrator, I can simply edit the properties for the shortcut and then click the Advanced button and choose the option to run as an administrator. Now, when I choose to run the application from the shortcut, I will be prompted for administrator credentials prior to the application launching, and that will happen every time I try to run the application. Now, when I try to run this command, I will be allowed, because I have opened it using the administrator credentials. Another problem I might run into is that an application might not run in the current version of Windows. I'm currently running in Windows Vista. I might be trying to run an application that was intended for a previous version of Windows, and run into problems as that application tries to run. Some applications will not run at all. Others might run and then show me problems as I try to perform various tasks. To modify that, I can go to the properties of the shortcut again and use the compatibility settings. Now in this case, I'm told that the compatibility modes cannot be set on a program that is a part of the Windows operating system itself. So these settings will be unavailable. In fact, I shouldn't have any problems with this program because it came with Vista. However, I might have problems with applications that I've used in previous versions. To show this, let me install an application that I've downloaded. The actual application itself doesn't matter, but we're going to use this just as an example to show the compatibility mode settings as well as some other problems that can occur when you're managing your applications. So I'll quickly go through here and select the options to configure this application. Now notice here we show the destination folder of C program files, and we looked at that previously. 64-bit applications will be installed to the program files directory if this is a 64-bit operating system. If it is a 32-bit operating system, it will only have the program files directory, and only 32-bit applications can be installed. Let me finish the installation here. And now as it actually attempts to install the application, I am prompted for permission to continue. That is because with Windows Vista, many of the actions performed during an application installation can only be performed with administrator privileges. For example, modifying the registry and other files can only be done with administrator privileges. So when you're installing applications, you need to make sure that the users have the appropriate permissions to install the applications that they need. Okay, now with the application installed, it's added an icon to the desktop. And if I right-click that, I can edit the compatibility options for this application. The first option, Run this program in compatibility mode, allows me to select the target operating system for which this application was designed. For this setting, when the application runs, it might query the operating system and ask, "What version are you?" to verify that it will run on the correct version. In some cases, if the operating system reports a higher operating system version, the application will stop. So we can, in a sense, fool the application by selecting the compatibility mode, and then when the application queries the operating system, it will report back this operating system version instead of its current version. We could also change settings such as color and screen resolutions, which might be causing problems with the application running. And finally, we can run the program as an administrator, similar to what we've seen before. I'm currently not logged on as an administrator, so to change this setting, I would need to click this button, give my administrator credentials, and then I can choose to run the program as an administrator every time it is launched. Doing that, when I run the program, you'll see that I'm prompted for the administrator credentials before I can actually start the program. So in this demonstration, we've looked at running and managing applications. We've looked at shortcut locations on the Start menu and in the Quick Launch area. We've looked at the shortcut properties, how they point to executable files. We've looked at running applications and the install using administrator privileges. If you have trouble running an application, you can use the compatibility mode to try to run the application as if it were running in a lower operating system version.